Alright, this is going to be a video in response to a discussion on the unofficial Martin Guitar Forum and the UMGF, unofficial Martin Guitar Forum. The discussion was, do the Authentics have Duddy Notes? And I asked the question, what's a Duddy Note and how do you find the Duddy Note? And the author of the post said that he goes through and plays the notes on the guitar and then finds a note that's Duddy, and then he hears it in chords once he's discovered a Duddy note. So I made an observation. I've been doing this for a little while. One time at Kaufman Camp, I had a customer come in and he was complaining about this note buzzing. This note buzz, this note buzz, this note buzz. And of course, it buzzes. I'm like, well, it doesn't do that, And then, as we were talking about it, two things happen here. Is once you do that to a note, and once you hear it in your head, in my experience, you cannot get it out of your head. You focus on that so much that's all you hear. All right, so Mark Cosgrove was walking by right there. Mark is a multi-time Winfield champion, I think. I know once. I think twice, maybe. Anyway, Mark is a tremendous guitar player. I don't take guitar lessons from a whole lot of people. I wanted a lesson from Mark because he had some stuff. Anyway, Mark's a tremendous guitar player. And so I asked him to come in here, and I asked him to play that note. And he plays it, and he goes, so? I said, well, my customer here says that note buzzes and sounds funny to him. Well, Mark said that he's never had a guitar ever that didn't have a funny note or a buzz or a Duddy note or something somewhere. And so I said, and that was my experience, which is why I wanted his opinion, because you can argue with me, but it's hard to argue with someone at the level of, Mark Cosgrove. So, and I just wanted a verification on this. I wasn't trying to beat up my customer or anything. It was time for a third opinion here. So I asked Mark then, I said, so what do you do? And he says, just ignore it, play around it, because he says it's part of the organic experience of the guitar. And so the customer was satisfied with that. And then, later he came back and he said, you're right, we sat around in class and we all played different notes, and every guitar's got a bad note somewhere on it. Okay, the other thing, I had I think a 1945 or something, D18, that was so bright and so nasally, it was almost unpleasant. And I played this one note on that guitar, and it was horrible. I mean, I just couldn't get over it. And the problem is when you put your capo on the 4th fret, and play a C chord, it's right there. So if you put a capo on the 4th fret, and this is a capo. My capo is over there. I don't want to go get it. This is a capo, and I play a C note, C shape, this note right here, 7th fret, A string. And that note was so horrible on that guitar. It just jangled, it rattled, it was dead. It was horrible. And I thought, how in the world are you going to put a capo on and play out of this position, And I tried, and that's when I realized that once you focus on that note, that's all you'll ever hear. Anyway, so one time I was at Cotton Music in Nashville, Tennessee. Great, terrific guitar shop. And Kim Sherman was working there. And, Kim and I know each other a little bit, especially, 20 years ago, more so. And I was playing one of her guitars in the shop. And I played that note for her, just to see if she was paying attention. She goes, man, that's horrible. And I said, that's the worst note I have ever found on an acoustic guitar. And I think most acoustic guitars sound really bad on that note for some reason. So we went around the shop, slow day, slow afternoon. That's why I was in there racing time. went around the shop and played most of the guitars in there. Yeah, it's just a matter of pulling them off the wall and play that. And once you're listening for that note, that's it, man. Every guitar in there, that note sounded funny for some reason. So that's what I know about Duddy Notes. So I thought what we would do here is take this guitar, which is a D18, 1939, aged authentic, which in my humble opinion is the state of the art in a modern Martin D18. There is no better D18 than this. The 37, we can argue back and forth, but to me it's just two flavors of apples, There is no beating this guitar. This particular guitar I've worked on a couple of times already does not have a popsicle brace on it, so it's even better than a stock one. And this one's for sale too, and I'm going to have a whole video on that. And I'm really tempted to try to come up with the money to buy it, but we'll see. I've got too many guitars. So I'm going to take this absolute pinnacle of the state of the art, and we're going to go through it note and fret by fret, note by note, and I want you to listen and see if you hear a Duddy note. I think it's going to be interesting because I think we're going to hear different people are going to hear different Duddy notes. So I'm going to point out a couple when we get done that I think are Duddy notes that I'm sitting here thinking that could be a possible Duddy note. And then I'm going to play it in a chord, and we're going to see whether or not it qualifies and just that kind of thing. So I'm going to do that with this guitar, and then I'm going to get one of the D35 that I modified. So a hot rodded D35 out, which will give us a rosewood guitar. And we'll go through it again. And this is going to be kind of boring, but I think it'll be fun. In a way, it's guitar nerdism, okay? So here we go. I'm going to go note by note by note. I'm not going to worry too much about the open notes, but it doesn't matter. Here we go, okay? In that set of notes, if you were to ask me, that E flat. I don't know. Let's discuss this later, okay? Let's do this again. So let's move on up here. These notes don't count. No acoustic guitar in the world sounds good up there. Those are just, I just played. I heard a couple notes in there in that string that I thought actually jumped out a little bit at me. Let's see. That one. That's an E sharp, isn't it? It's an F. So E flat seemed to be. So this was an E flat. That's an E flat. And the F seems like it's a little a little spiky. What do you think? I mean, do you hear that? Is that me? Is it? It's minor though. I mean, I'm really nitpicking here. I am really, but just sitting there playing that, like you know. It wobbles. Just, and that comes back in, and then the F is like a little bit of a spike. You know, I don't know. Do you hear that or not? So let's take the F note. Where's the other F note? It's a nursery rhyme. Sorry. I'll be hard pressed. You know, I think his guitar is pretty consistent. But if you pushed me, I would think that the E flat sounded a little bit kind of funky, and the F sounded just a little bit sharp. Just you really have to push me. What about these notes here? This is typically a very bad note for acoustic guitars. Sounds pretty good to me. I don't hear the... I don't hear anything there. Maybe you did. I had a guitar customer once that had a troublesome guitar, and it was a series of 2 notes that he was playing. Let's see if I can get them for you. It wasn't these 2, but I know it was a root and a third. Must have been an A. He said it was a Chris Isaac tune. And I don't know Chris Isaac tunes, but it was a funny interval. And as I played it, I thought, man, that's a horrible interval. The interval itself sounded bad to me, no matter where I played it on the guitar neck. And I'm pretty sure it was a third, because I remember going to a G and a B and thinking, you know, I never, on a G chord, I never play these 2 notes. I never play a G chord like this, ever. Sound too bad on this guitar, but I would leave that interval off and skip that. Of course, I play the bluegrass chord, which is all root and fifth. But even if I was going to put a third in there, I'd put it in on the upper voice up here to get it away from the root. Maybe that's something I learned in music school, but I know when we were studying jazz guitar voicings, Freddie Green style. One of the very first things that we learned is that rarely do you play all 6 notes in a chord. You know, most jazz swing chords are 3 or 4 note things with dead note, dead note. The whole Freddie Green deal was so much 3-note chord, and even Eldon Shamblin, you know. 3-note voicings. The reason is they were cleaner. You didn't have those kind of funky intervals that can come out. Those close intervals like that, especially on the bass strings, can really bring out unpleasant overtones. Can really bring out unpleasant overtones And my feeling is that if you have to play those, how to say this? The artist may come up with something, and maybe the artist plays that. Let's see. That sounds unpleasant to me. I mean, I would not play that. I would not pick that out in order to play that, because it's an unpleasant sounding interval, and I would avoid it and play some other combination of that. So, all right, here's what I'm trying to say. Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, okay? So, I was discussing this, and I said, what's the difference between Tom Petty solo album and Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers? And I read an interview with Petty, and he was talking about one of his albums, one of the Tom Petty solo albums. To me, it's all Tom Petty. You know, and I'll say, okay, this album sounds a little different than this album. Well, everybody's, you know, even if it's the Rolling Stones, and it's, you know, this album sounds different from that album, sounds different from that album. So that's what you would want. So obviously, a Tom Petty solo album is Tom Petty with friends. So he calls in Jeff Lynne, and he calls in George Harrison, and he calls in, you know, different people outside of the Heartbreakers, as well as a couple of the Heartbreakers, Mike Campbell. He calls in, you know, Benny, and he, you know, a different stage. Whereas Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers album is Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers band. Okay, so Petty's comment was that this is a good album here, and had the Heartbreakers been there on it, it would have still been a great album. It wouldn't have been the same album that it was as a Tom Petty solo album. You know, that's a very good concept there, is that just because an artist does some interval like this doesn't mean that you have to do it that way. Because if you want to put your stamp on it, you need to rearrange it a little bit, and you might very well say, I don't like the sound of that interval, but I'm going to rearrange it, and I'm going to mimic that. Maybe I'm going to move that interval someplace else. So, you know, I would avoid that interval, and if I was the guy writing the song, I would sure try to have a guitar that maybe sounded good on that interval. And then the trouble is that's the only guitar you're ever going to be able to play that song on. So, you know, be cautious of the intervals, because the intervals can definitely produce a bad sound. I mean, you could go to the piano and play those two notes together, and they don't sound good. They're too close together, you know. Or maybe you want that tension. So that's another thing to consider here, is maybe you want that dissonance. And therefore, when you're playing the guitar, you want that dissonance and you want that rattly sound on there. You know, you as a player, it's hard to decipher what the intent of the artist was. And I just know this from literature, you know, writing. Everybody had, you know, the allusions and the metaphors in here. And, you know, and then you ask the author, and they're like, I didn't mean that. You know, it's true of songwriting, too. People build up all this stuff into the song, and the songwriter's like, well, I'm glad to hear that, but, you know, to me it was a song about my dog. But we build this stuff into there. You know, we play that interval. We think that should sound good, when actually the artist really wanted that dissonance in there. So, okay, so I'm just trying to say, keep your ears open on the dissonance. Just because it sounds like a bad note, I don't, you know, do you guys pick out the bad notes that I picked out, or are you picking out some different bad notes that I totally missed because to me they didn't sound bad, you know? My hearing or this room, or it's just to me, when you play a note, you always have the sound of that note in your head, and you already know how that note's going to sound, because if you didn't, you'd never be able to play guitar. But if you tried to react to the note, the moment's gone. So in order to play guitar and improvise, you have to know ahead of time what that note's going to sound like, so that you get the note that you want. You have it built up in your head as to what it sounds like, and it's very difficult to hear yourself play, because you got a sound in your head, and that's what you hear the guitar saying. And that's why people have producers and other people, and that's why I called Mark Cosgrove in, because I wanted another voice into it. I wanted a producer to come in and say yay or nay on this thing, you see? So that's why when you listen to that bad note and you hear it once and you convince yourself it's bad, then that's all you're ever going to hear, because you've already predicted to yourself what that note's going to sound like. It's very, very difficult. I don't know if it's possible for you to rewire your brain to a different point on that, but definitely is a factor. Okay, so we played this absolute fabulous D18. I really can't pick out a Duddy note. If I thought there was a Duddy note, it'd be that E flat. So let's put an E flat into a chord here, and let's see if we hear a Duddy note in the chord. Okay, so right there's your E flat. That's an A flat, you dummy. E flat. I need a chord of the E flat. Well, there we go. Oh, that's an E flat. I'm good. This is the A flat. Where else can I get one? Got it twice there. We got it here as the fifth and as the root. So do you hear a Duddy note inside that chord? I know I'm playing percussively there anyways, so the percussion hides that note for a minute because it doesn't let it sustain, and I don't know if I can play. Yeah, sounds good to me. I mean, to me, it's also the flavor of that comes into effect. The tone, the flavor, the pitch. I'm not sure what I'm trying to drive at right there. You know, there's something about playing that slightly flat, A flat as opposed to A. Gosh, listen to the difference between that. See that? To me, is that the whole A flat experience over here is dead compared to this. Yeah, there's an example of what I'm talking about. To me, that just really, from what I'm hearing, sitting here, that really brightened up. So, what if I use the D flat? I hear as big of a difference there or not, if I'm just trying to imagine it, you know. That sounds pretty smooth to me. I don't hear as big of a jump there either. Those two chords sound pretty consistent to me. That's a flat major 6, A flat 6. I don't quite hear the jump, so then to me that it is this E flat. It's this note. It's these two. Do you hear a jump there or not? Do you hear one of those notes is hot and one of them is a little bit dull? I don't know. I think we should get that D35 out and look at the same notes again. I told you this was going to be long and tedious, and a lot of you have already cut out from here. But what I'm most interested in is what do you hear compared to what do I hear? Meaning you, I bet you a lot of you are going to have different responses. Some of you are going to pick up some notes that none of us do. So this is interactive video here, okay? So we get the D35 and let's go through it a little bit quicker. I'm not going to talk as much on this one. We'll just go through them, okay? I heard one note. Let's go back and look at the E flats up to the F. So E flat. You tell me. Let's play this thing again. There's a David Guzman tune that does that, but I can't quite get it. Do you hear anything different there? Once again, I think I could imagine a tone difference between this A flat. I think I could imagine a tone difference. See, the trouble is I'm already biased now, and I'm focusing on that. So I'm not sure if it's there or not. I could imagine it. But when I go back into the sixth chord, the A flat 6, I don't hear it. So once again, I think it's that interval between the root and the fifth right there. Any perceived brightness is coming from that interval, because I don't hear it nearly as much over here, where I've got the upper voice in the chord rather than everything's in the low end. So this is a upper voice chord. It's got a bass note, but the voice is up in the upper part, and I just don't. It's the same phenomena as I heard on the D18. That 6 chord sounds pretty smooth to me. So it's not the bass note that's causing the perception. It's that interval of the root and the fifth right there. And again, that's an E note. That's an E flat and the E, which is why I picked the whole thing. So let's listen to this real quick. Did that movement and progression sound the same to you? Or when I shifted it up into A, did the whole thing kick up in brightness more than I would expect? It definitely, the A just definitely sounds boom, more brighter than I would expect. Like if I was to do this. It's getting brighter, but when I hit the A, it seems like the brightness level went whoom and kicked up. It's like the guitar found the voice right there in the A, which is a fact. Every guitar, every instrument is tuned to some sort of pitch. There's some sort of resonant pitch that it's tuned to between the wood of the top, the bridge, the sides, the back, neck, the headstock. All of those things combine to produce some sort of atmosphere where certain notes are going to flourish. Every instrument I've ever had has got a spot where you go, yeah, that's where that instrument just really sounds good. And then just a little bit away from that, half a step, a whole step maybe, it just isn't quite in that sweet spot. That's why even when I'm playing fiddle tunes by myself, I put a capo on the second fret and I play it out of the A, because I'm used to hearing that tonal quality of a capoed A. It's a tonal quality, not really a pitch or something. So, okay, so Duddy Notes. Let me know in the comments if you heard Duddy Notes that you just went, oh God, how can he even stand to play that guitar? And let me know if you heard that difference between the A flat, and A natural that I was perceiving, maybe. Let me know if you heard that. I just want to know what you hear. So, okay, this is fun. I've got another video after this. I'm going to do another one on tone. We're going to talk about nodes and how the nodes affect your tone and vice versa. And one thing I've done here is I haven't modified my hand position any, because I'm not totally convinced that any of these notes are really duds. But let's just say, for instance, that we thought this E flat was a dud. How does it change as I move my hand position? So, did that note ever become less duddy to you? I thought there was a place right here where it definitely changed. I can't pull the duddiness out from the tonal change. That's hard to do. There's definitely a tonal change going on there, and I'm not sure which one I like. It's just a tonal change. Play it, which is where I play it. That seems to me to have the best combination of bright and bite, of the bite and the warm. This is too warm. There's definitely a frog sound there. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Wham, you know, right there. That's a little too chubby, too thin. Right there. What do you think about that? All right, later.